Give me a heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's you.
But I yelled, so this isn't really indicative of my levels.
No, your levels are fine. That's all. We're
Welcome to the show.
done. Episode over. What did you call us one time when we did it the very first time?
Podcast Boys.
Podcast Boys covering the Get Up Kids.
We're back.
We're back.
There used to be a way to stick it to the man. It was called rock and roll. But guess what? Oh no. The man ruined that too with a little thing called MTV.
Don't talk to me about rock and roll. I'm out there in the clubs and on the streets and I'm living it. I am rock and roll.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
What became of everyone I used to know? Where did our respectable convictions go? Your words don't match the story that your actions show. What do I know? Sure, you can't help but remembering. Thought that you'd be one not to forget. Remembering's not helping you yet.
So I gave you a bit of a task for this one. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to make Mark listen to something that I don't know if he'll like.
You thought Jordan is gone.
Jordan is gone, still on holidays, and I wasn't going to have a new music review because he was gone, but then I was able to actually work something out. So if you haven't listened to the Alkaline Trio episode yet, go listen to that. That's for their brand new album, Is This Thing Cursed? Had my buddy Aaron on the show, who I've never met in real life. He's an internet pal who, that sounds like it's straight out of the late 90s when this album comes out. So that's a sweet segue. This album came out in the days of internet girlfriends. Is that a thing? It was a thing for sure. I don't know. I may have had an internet girlfriend at this time. Do you ever have an internet girlfriend?
No, I
you're
did-
too young.
I did. I remember Teen Chat or like Chatropolis.
Sure, yeah.
Chat rooms.
Chat rooms. That's where I met said internet girlfriend.
Yeah, but I don't
Her
think I-
name was Angela, I believe. She was from Illinois.
But I was young. Like,
yeah. You
Like-
just mentioned when this album came out, you were in like grade 4, I think. You
But
said.
I would have been like 9 when doing internet chat rooms.
Sure.
Like, young.
Okay, so we are back. This is Mark again. He is back for another go around, and this is Music to My Peers. You can follow us on Instagram. Well, follow myself at David to My Peers. You can drop your Instagram right now if you want. You can say it, but people won't know how to
Mark
spell it.
Persilo just
Yeah, just good luck. And you can also find us on Facebook, and of course, wherever you're listening to this podcast, we're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe, you leave ratings, comments, all that kind of stuff, because it'll help get the show into more ears, so we thank you for that. So, this is a bit of a classic album review, because this album is a classic. It's been out for nearly 20 years now. That's impressive when I think about it. We're talking about Something to Write Home About by the Get Up Kids. And a little bit of a quick sort of segue deal here. Speaking of Alkaline Trio, Get Up Kids and Alkaline Trio at this time were on the same record label. And I loved them both dearly at this time. But we're here to talk about Get Up Kids. So I gave you this record, because Jordan's gone, and I thought, let's find something that maybe Mark will like, maybe he won't like. I thought there's stuff on here you might like, and maybe stuff that you'd be like, eh. So, real quick, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, initially, when the first song came on, Holidays,
Yep. Holiday, yeah.
it was a little heavier than I would have necessarily normally listened to.
Yeah.
But then I ended up really, really liking it.
Oh.
It's possibly my favorite album we've.
Really?
It's probably the one I would still listen to that we've covered.
Yeah.
after-
So we've covered, for those who haven't listened to the episodes, there is a lost episode which we like to joke about.
We'll talk about it.
But Foxing, their latest album, Near My God, we covered that just not long ago, just a couple weeks ago. And then initially you were on
Frightened
doing
Rabbit.
Frightened Rabbit, that's
Winter
right.
of Mixed Strengths.
Winter of Mixed Strengths. So
Phantom Power, Tragically Hip.
Phantom Power, Tragically Hip. That's
and Death Cab.
Oh yeah, we did Death Cab. That's what you've been on a lot lately. I think you've worn out your welcome. No, so this is your okay. So
It's my
right off
fifth
the hop,
album I've done.
Fifth album, and this is your favorite out of the
I think
one.
so, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And you came out when you were a young buck.
Yeah, so were you, when you first heard it, because you're 40? How old are you? 41?
No, so I would have been in. Well, when did it was
99.
It was 1999. I was wondering when in 99 it came out.
It's pre 9/11.
September 21st, 19. So I would have actually been just starting grade 10 when this record came
Oh,
out.
you're younger than I thought.
Yeah, I am. I turned 34 this year,
at you.
so close to 41. But closer to 41 than I am to when this record came out, though. So that's kind of sad. But yeah, so I would have been just starting grade 10. I don't think I bought this record when it first came out. Like, I think I was aware of them. I remember, so when I was in, like, you know, junior high, middle school, whatever, I would have been junior high. I was huge into MXPX, and I can remember going on the internet into chat rooms and whatever, and hearing about MXPX touring with this band, the Get Up Kids. Like, so they were opening for the Get Up Kids, and I was like, oh, who are these guys? And so I kind of had like this outside awareness of them, but I didn't actually, I think, really get into them. This may have been the first one I bought, but it wasn't when it first came out. The newest one I bought when it came out would have been the next one, On a Wire, which sounds very different. Maybe I'll get you to cover that one sometime, because they really mellowed out from this to On a Wire. It's interesting. And I'd say their biggest quote unquote hit or most well-known song came off On a Wire. It's called Overdue. And I say it's their biggest one because it was on One Tree Hill. It was on an episode of One Tree Hill. So there's that. In fact, if you look it up on, you're not on an iPhone, but say on Apple Music, when you look up the Get Up Kids, they list their songs by popularity. And Overdue is number 1 and number 2, but the number 1 Overdue is literally off the One Tree Hill.
That's funny.
Like soundtrack, whatever. So yeah, I got into them, like, I was in high school for sure. Like, I wasn't late to the party with these guys, but those were the 2 albums that I really listened to, and I didn't really listen to much before or after. Like, I've kind of checked their stuff out. They did just release an EP earlier this year called Kicker. They were gone for a while, and then they came back, and the EP is getting a lot of, high praise from old fans, old school fans, whatever. So it's kind of neat. But yeah, so you liked the album. Did you have moments that kind of like stood out? Like, are there specific songs or things that happened on the record?
I never know any of the names of it. I didn't even know the name of the band until yesterday, or the name of the album.
Yeah,
remember you were asking me, and
well, you did know the name of the band. You're like, you were just struggling to remember because you said it right away. You said the Get Up Kids,
and then
you questioned yourself whether or not that was right.
I asked you to give me 3 possible album titles.
Yeah, and
I got it right off that. But even now, I don't know what's
called. Something to Write Home About.
That's right. Were there moments? I remember picking a favorite song. Could we do favorite songs?
Yeah.
Was Long Good Night. I don't remember why I picked that.
Okay.
But I kind of
liked...
liked...
Because it's the longest song on the album.
Is it?
It's 4:46.
The last one's pretty long, too.
Yeah, 4:22. I like I'll Catch You. I'll Catch You is always a song that stood out to me.
I find it pretty good from top to bottom.
It and I was actually... Okay, here's the thing is, it had been a while since I really went back and listened to this album. And the reason why I went back and listened to it was because on a recent road trip, I was listening to a podcast, and I was listening to a podcast called the Washed Up Emo Podcast, where he like basically interviews old emo guys sort of deal, and some newer stuff as well. But he was interviewing Matt Pryor, one of the members of the band here, about their new EP, but they got to talking about other stuff, right? And so I was like, oh man, I want to listen to Something to Write Home About, because when I would go back and listen to the Get Up Kids, it was really On a Wire that first captured me, and with that song Overdue. And so going back and listening to this, I found myself enjoying it, I think, far more than maybe I originally did. And just kind of, for whatever reason, there was a time in my life where I went through and I got rid of a bunch of CDs. I used to have hundreds of CDs. And one time with my roommates, we decided we were going to sell a bunch of CDs so we could buy a pool table out of like secondhand out of some guy's basement sort of deal. And for whatever reason, I did not sell the Get Up Kids Something to Write Home About or On a Wire. I kept them, even though, I sold like all of my Blink 182 CDs, all of my Newfound Glory CDs, like these bands that I look back on and go, oh, I really liked that. I sold all those CDs, but I kept the Get Up Kids. Maybe I felt in my mind, I was like, oh, they're so much more mature than just a pop punk band, because it was at a time where I was like kind of done with pop punk for a little bit.
When were the last times where it have been that you listened to the Get Up Kids before now?
I want to say I do on occasion, like kind of come back to them, but it's, you know, like maybe a song or two. Like, so I would have listened to them within the past 2 years for sure. Like maybe even the past year. At some point, put something on by the Get Up Kids. Well, okay, for sure, because when Kicker came out, I did kind of go back and listen to some Get Up Kids a little bit. But it wasn't something that, you know, I didn't listen to an album multiple times when that came out. But yeah, like so they're a band that's always kind of been around, and I think in the past, for whatever reason, Matt Pryor's voice on this record kind of annoyed me at times, because the songs are a little more, compared to On a Wire, more aggressive and more up tempo, and I just felt like he was pushing more with his voice. And some, like, because my favorite songs on the record they tend to be the slower ones, like I'll Catch You and Valentine and stuff like that. Which are, you know, kind of more of the slower songs, whereas like a song like Holiday and Red Letter Day and stuff, I found myself not enjoying them as much. But this time around, I think I gained a new appreciation for the album, and so I'm excited to hear that you actually liked it. I didn't pick it going, you're going to hate this, but I was like, I wonder if it'll be a bit of work, knowing that, you know, stylistically, you're not normally drawn necessarily to this kind of music.
Yeah, but I always listen to some Blink-182 and Newfound Glory. But you're right, it's probably not quite in my
and to sit down and listen, well, not necessarily sit down, I think you listen while you're at the gym. Is that what you do?
Usually, yeah.
So like to specifically pick it out and go, I'm going to listen from track 1 all the way through track 12, like that's probably not something you normally do.
But it was also good, like, running music.
Yeah.
From everything we've covered, like, because it's so much faster, probably fit what I was doing, which music often, you know, not everything's good for driving music, and some stuff's good for working out music.
I listened to that Death Cab album a ton on my road trip, by the way.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's road trip music.
It kind of, At the same point, it was a little risky driving, you know, through the night, listening to like more mellow stuff. But
sure,
it was good. It was really good. But you were saying, and I don't know if you figured it out, but you were saying just before we started recording that they reminded you of another band. Did you like a band that got bigger, or what were you saying?
No, I just wonder, because to me, I never knew who they were before, right. So I wonder who. There's so many bands that kind of sound like them.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like they were for sure like in that that emo realm, and so like there are some bands that came out at like maybe you can make a comparison to like early Jimmy Eat World. Early Death Cab, even though Ben Gibbard says he always hated the phrase emo and never considered, even though they were very much an early emo band. But but they're also more, I think, like Get Up Kids were more upbeat than both of those bands, right? Like they would definitely bring in some of that pop punk rock influence into their sound. But yeah, I don't know if there's specifically a band that got more fame than the Get Up Kids.
Yeah, maybe not.
Sort of
maybe they're just in that genre where no one was super like played a ton on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it probably depends where. I wonder, like the reviews. Oh, sorry, I just got distracted by this. This is great. Okay, so on the Wikipedia page, it lists like the reviews and scores it got, right? So one of these things is not like the other. AllMusic gave it 4 and a bit stars out of 5. Drowned in Sound gave it 9 out of 10. Melody Maker gave it 4 out of 5. Enemy 7 out of 10. Pop Matters 8 out of 10. Record Collector 4 out of 5. The Rolling Stone Album Guide 4 out of 5. Spin gave it 6 out of 10. And then there's Pitchfork. 2 out of 10. I would like to know what that review said. I was trying to figure out, if they had any kind of. So on the Billboard Top Heat Seekers, it hit number 31. So I don't know if I think that's just album sales, though. I don't think that's radio plays. So I mean, yeah, that's fair. I don't know if they would have gotten some radio play for sure, whether it was like college stations or they had two singles off of it. 10 minutes from downtown is 10 minutes too far, and Action in Action. But I don't really know how it.
I'm currently reading the Pitchfork review.
Oh, funny, where it gets 2 out of 10.
It's long, but I want to see if I can pull something out of it.
I'm curious. I'm really curious because, yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't have guessed. Like, that's compared to all the other reviews. That's impressive.
It starts by talking about the album cover. Skip that.
Oh yeah, it's a classic. As we sit in silence.
Yeah, I mean, we can just ignore this or edit it out.
I mean, the album cover. What does it say about the album cover? I'm interested.
First off, because I finally found a critique of the album itself.
Yeah.
The first sentence of the actual what looks like the review is it so much to ask for a shred of originality in music?
That's great.
Let's go back to the album.
I mean, it's
cover. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, they would have been, kind of in that wave of emo artists that there were a lot of similarities, but I think the Get Up Kids were one of the standout artists. So, I mean, I hate it when reviewers say stuff like that. And I mean, I've kind of said it from time to time, but like, bands don't need to reinvent the wheel with what they're doing. They just need to do it well. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a pop punk band that sounds like another pop punk band, which happens all the time. But if that pop punk band does it well and writes solid songs, who cares if they're, not out there doing something completely 100%.
This Pitchfork
original.
review also says that being pop has granted bands the luxury of not trying. It really hates it.
That's hilarious. Well, it is so funny how the reviews, like, most of the reviews are pretty solid. Like, Spin gave it 6 out of 10, and NME New Music Express gave it 7 out of 10. So those are like the lower reviews, and then there's 2 out of 10 by Pitchfork. So, I mean, good on Pitchfork.
Do you want to hear some more about it?
I wanted to hear what they had to say about the album artwork.
Okay, well, I'll just start from the beginning of it.
It's got a painting of robots.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
The cover depicts slumberous robots snuggling on a sofa, presumably watching banal television. Perhaps they're sluggishly digesting a biggie meal in a fast food booth. A mechanized Cupid hovers over their shoulders. Hues of gray and pastel depict the scene with high school strokes. It's fitting since the music contained within merely cranks the greaseless gears of insipid, mind-numbing, uninspired adolescent pop, bringing humanity a few inches closer to self-wrought destruction through resignation. I mean, I guess we could have started. That's pretty much.
Thank you, Pitchfork.
Sums it up.
I wonder if they had a rebuttal to Pitchfork.
I hope not. Just let it fly.
Like, in 2015, NME listed Something Right Home About as one of the 20 emo albums that have resolutely stood the test of time. So, like, I think it is like a pretty heavily enjoyed album within that genre, except for whoever does it say who the
that probably
reviewer
does.
was?
Let's go to that top.
Let's see. It might be at the bottom, but at the top it doesn't say.
But I think there's an issue when one person gets to represent an entire.
I love, by the way, I love that it appears to be a fairly anonymous review, at least according to their website. At that time, it was probably in a magazine, and maybe there was a name attached to it. But those are some pretty heavy words.
That's why like album of the year lists and stuff are better, because that's when like Pitchfork or a publication will get all its people together and kind of
and vote on stuff.
But when like literally, I mean, this it makes it seem like Pitchfork hates it, but ultimately
it's one person.
It's one person.
Yeah. And so it is kind of funny, especially, like I said, like, the overall reception of the album was that it was very positive.
Yeah, if you added all these scores, it would probably have, even though Pitchfork brings it down a lot, it'd probably at least be 7 out of 10. If you average it all up.
Yeah, probably.
You get this one that's 2, and it kind of just
hurts you. Kind of hurts you. But so let's get into, speaking of, rating albums and all that kind of fun stuff. We have 12 tracks on this album, as long as you did not listen to the UK version, which had bonus tracks. 12 tracks, ending with I'll Catch You, starting with Holiday. What do you give it out of 12?
10.
10, that's solid. I'm trying to figure out, I can't remember what you gave some of the other albums, but yeah, that's pretty darn solid.
A little worse.
Yeah, I think, like, I definitely fell more in love with this album listening now. So it is an interesting pick that I went with it, mainly because I normally would be like, oh, I really like this album, let's do this in that instance, right? But this one I was like, I've always kind of had mixed reviews on it, but I think I'm gonna give it a 9 or so. I think it's a pretty solid song. There are a couple that kind of fall off a little bit for me. But all in all, I think it's a great listen that I listened through without any problem. I don't know how long exactly the album is, but it's a good one. So I would encourage you a couple of things though. You liked this, so maybe this will either make you like this album more, or you'll be like, eh. But if you go listen to On a Wire by the Get Up Kids, the following album, I'm curious to see. Am I wrong about that being? Oh no, this wasn't. Eudora wasn't really. They had a bunch of covers and stuff on that album. On a Wire came out in 2002. I want to see what the average reviews were on that. So it actually got Pitchfork liked it slightly more. 3.3 out of 10. But all the other reviews were actually a little bit lower. AllMusic gave it 3 out of 5. AP Magazine looks like gave it 7 out of 10. Rolling Stone 3 out of 5. Star Pulse 3 out of 5. It is very different, that album, but if you go listen to that or listen to some Matt Pryor solo stuff, it's a lot more mellow, acoustic sort of stuff. But yeah, we did Get Up Kids, something to write home about, and I think we are in agreement. It's a pretty decent album.
Did you give it? You can give it a score.
I did. I gave it 9.
I was not listening. Apparently.
Wow. Were you looking out the window again?
No, I was getting On a Wire.
So 19 out of 24 we just gave that record. That's pretty good. That's what, 80% roughly? Somewhere in that area. I think that's an acceptable grade. So yeah, we'll do this again sometime. Maybe I'll feed you some more albums that I'm like, you should listen to this.
Aretha Franklin, maybe? I mean,
Aretha Franklin. Oh, and I mentioned the whole Alkaline Trio label mates with these guys at that time. Can you guess one other artist that was eventually label mates with this band? Not quite in 99, but for sure by the time their next studio album came out.
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder nailed it. No! Dashboard Confession.
Oh, that's gonna be my next guess.
Yeah, they're all on Vagrant Records, which was probably my favorite record company at that time. They're just like releasing all sorts of stuff that I just would buy and ingest. I don't know if that's the right word or not. But anyways, that'll do it for this time. So yeah, we'll do this again sometime. And
Bye.